Andrew McCart, iFLTV, delighted to be joined by maybe a jet-lagged Eddie Hearn.
No,
How are you feeling?
We don't do jet lag, mate.
Nah.
Jet lag's in the mind. You know?
You have been globetrotting, man. I've been watching.
I've been globetrotting for 15 years, mate. You know what I mean?
Listen.
But, no, feeling good, and we've gone from Sydney to Altrincham for the big debut of Pat Brown. So NXTGEN this Friday. Looking forward to it, actually. Really good card.
Let's talk about Pat Brown then, because I spoke to him yesterday. I spoke to him that time we were at 20 Stories when we had the sort of press meet as you signed him, and he's such a nice, humble kid, but everyone keeps telling me, wait till he puts a pair of gloves on. So what are we going to expect? 2,000 tickets sold, headlining on his debut. I mean, what are we going to expect here?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be wild in there. I think 3,000 complete sellout, and he's sold most of those. If you speak to people that spar with him, they all say the same thing: animal, frightening. And this is a guy that we want excitement, right? The British public wants a good, honest story that they can buy into, but most of all, be entertained in the ring. And Pat Brown has all of that. You know, we've made a big investment in this young man. Normally the next gens, you know, you see a couple of 10-rounders, we've got them, but we've made it clear Pat Brown is the top of the bill tomorrow night, and you'll see why when he walks out, but you'll also see why in the ring, because he's a guy with tremendous amateur pedigree, he's a huge puncher, but he's very aggressive, and he's matched nice and tough early on, to be honest with you, so got to stay calm at the same time and get the job done.
When we talk about pound-for-pound stars, we talk about Tyson Fury's, Anthony Joshua's, but they're getting to the tail end of their career. Can you see from this NXTGEN card, especially Pat Brown, since you've invested in him, is that pound-for-pound star?
You know, that's the aim of all these young kids coming up, is who's going to be those next names. You know, that requires a huge amount of investment in the fighter, from a profile perspective, from a media training perspective, from a promotional perspective, but also ability. You know, you can't tell at this stage who's going to go on and be the next AJ or Fury or Bellew or Brook or, you know, DeGale, Groves. These are the guys that have been, you know, leaving the sport over the last 2-5 years, and some upcoming. But someone like Pat Brown's got every opportunity to be one of those guys, because when you start off and you sell those kind of numbers and you fight like he does and you have the ability that he does, you've got a tremendous start. In fact, you'd kind of balls it up if you weren't. Do you know what I mean? And all these guys that we sign from the Olympics and all these young people, the dreams and aspirations are for them to be a world champ. I'm not really interested in sticking a load of money into some quality amateur for him to go and win a British title. In fact, if Pat Brown don't win a British title, it's a complete disaster. And if Pat Brown only wins a British title, that's a complete disaster as well. So I need him to go and win world championships, and we've got to do everything right. And we will, and I believe he will as well. Another reason that you stick a load of money into someone is because you believe in their work ethic. You know they're not going to fuck around. I don't want to be sticking money into a young fighter that don't live the life, that's not putting the same kind of commitment behind the journey that we are or our team are. And I know what I'll get from Pat: proper hard-working kid and a great fighter.
We spoke about the next pound-for-pound star, but you know yourself, that Manchester crowd and that Manchester era where Ricky Hatton was phenomenal, then it was Anthony Crawley, those big nights. There seems to be a void. Can you see it being Pat Brown filling that void and being that next Ricky Hatton?
Listen, when you talk about freak ticket sellers, Johnny Fisher is one of them, right? But even Johnny Fisher, when he started out, he wasn't selling over 1,000 tickets for a 6-rounder. That's something that you build into. Like, this is quite freakish and obscene, and you'll see it's not just the numbers, it's the noise. You know, and there's been a few ticket sellers over the past. Josh Warrington, a good example. Probably Ritson when he was flying up in Newcastle, where all of a sudden those individuals are selling 1,500 tickets out of the car and house. And there's few and far between, but we've got one. But the difference is we've got one from the debut, you know, and that can only grow. It's never going to go backwards. And as the journey progresses, as you get to those championship fights, if you get to those big nights, he's going to start filling arenas. And, you know, he's a man of the city. And I think the people of this city will respond, and they've responded already.
Cameron Vong, Jordan Flynn, third time lucky,
Don't
finally.
Jinx it, hopefully.
Well, listen, they've weighed in, so we're good to go apparently. Talking about that fight, I spoke to young Cameron Vong, and he seems, normally he's quite a cheeky, smiley, childish, but probably the wrong word, but he's got that little bit of a child in him. But I spoke to him yesterday, and it was stone-faced.
It's a very serious fight for him, you know. I think Cameron probably hasn't got the respect he deserves in terms of the step-ups that he's been facing. I mean, even Jeff Afori, after how many ever fights he had, 5 or 6 fights, Cameron, like, it's a big step up. Gavin Gwynn was a really big step up, but with all the hype, especially the hype that Sam Jones gives me about these fighters, but it wasn't good enough, right? But it was more than good enough for a very good prospect at that stage in his career. But if we're led to believe this kid is super special, I would have preferred him to beat Gavin Gwynn in style rather than people talking about which way it went. Now, when you go back to this fight, you see, I felt that when Cameron Vong against Jordan Flynn was made originally, I thought it was a very straightforward fight for Cameron. You know, now with the pressure of the last fight, with a little bit of criticism, and is he as good as the hype suggests? I think so, but I don't think he showed it in the Gavin Gwynn fight. So he needs to show it tomorrow night. Now all of a sudden, Jordan Flynn's probably thinking, do you know what? I watched that Gavin Gwynn fight. I don't actually think he's all that they're saying he is. You know, and just a little bit of pressure comes in. I think the experience of the Gavin Gwynn fight will actually really take him to that next level. And he was lucky to get a win in that fight. It was a fight that could have gone either way, but sometimes you suffer a defeat early on and you learn a lot from that and you build on it and you improve. He got away with the win, but I think all the lessons will be the same from that fight. And I expect him to look good against Flynn tomorrow night. If Flynn really comes to fight, if he really believes in himself, I think it'll be a cracking fight.
I'll get you to run down the card at the end, because a couple of things I want to touch on before I get nudged on probably, is Simon Jordan's comments this morning on the show saying that you need to grow up, reference this Johnny Fisher scorecard against Alan in the first fight, you and Johnny Fisher, and it's kind of childish that we're still talking about it. I just want to get your quick response to that.
Who's childish?
Yeah, you and Johnny Fisher keep going on about that scorecard.
We're not going on about it once. We just get asked about it. I mean, we don't go into an interview and go, oh, I can't believe the scorecards from Johnny Fisher. People say to us, what did you think of the scorecards?
Yeah.
If he said that, I mean, I'm say plonker, we already know, but like if he actually said that, it's bizarre. We went into the TalkSport interview and they said to us, what do you think about these comments? What do you think about the fight, the scorecard? It's very straightforward. If you listen to the comments and the reactions, what they were asking about was Spencer Oliver and Gareth A. Davis's reactions, where they said...
Was it over the top? Was there a reaction over the top?
Just let me finish.
Yeah.
They say, this is unbelievable. This is one of the worst robberies. This fight wasn't even close. I mean, I had him winning the fourth round, the first 4 rounds, and maybe 10. Okay, whoa. Okay. If he wins the first 4 rounds and 10, Dave Allen wins by 1 point. How's that not close? Right? So I actually think that most people, and I think, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, I don't mind upsetting Johnny or whatever. If you, on the night, if you put a gun to my head and you say, who wins that fight, I'll go Dave Allen by 1 point. Because on the night, I gave Johnny the first 4 and I gave him 10. It's not really even questionable that he won those rounds. Unfortunately, he lost 5 as well, and there was a knockdown. Right, which scores it 95-94. That's the worst case scenario for Johnny Fisher. How is that not a close fight? It wasn't even close, but you've just given him 5 rounds. How can it not be close? Now, when I go back and I look at the 6th round, that's the only round in question for me. And I've watched it back. I mean, I think it's a swing round. If you give it to Johnny Fisher, he wins by a point. But I acknowledge that most people thought Dave Allen won that fight. But I don't like the reaction of what a robbery. I mean, in a worst case scenario, it's a point. But again, you asked me about this, they asked me about that. We don't want to talk about the scorecards. I mean, what we want to talk about is May 17.
Yeah.
And we've already sold nearly 6,000 tickets. We've only got about 1,000 tickets left. It's going to be completely sold out. The first fight is actually irrelevant. What is relevant is the rematch on May 17, which will be another sellout. And at this time, 10:30 p.m. or 10 p.m. in front of a packed arena with a wild atmosphere. And you're going to love it. Definitely,
I am going to love it. To be fair to Simon as well, he also said something along the lines of that Usyk and Dubois need AJ. And I think it was reference to if Usyk does fight Dubois at Wembley, they're going to need Anthony Joshua to help sell that out. Do you agree with that?
Well, he won't be on that card. I mean, so, but no, I don't agree with that. I think Usyk against Dubois sells out Wembley. Definitely. It's the undisputed heavyweight world championship between a Brit and one of the greatest fighters of all time. Like, but I think Usyk should retire. Honestly, like, imagine if Usyk walked away from boxing now.
All-time great, maybe.
Oh, well, I mean, he's always going to be an all-time great. But imagine never been beaten and undisputed at cruiserweight, undisputed at heavyweight. I mean, and the problem is, and I love Joe Parker, and he deserves a shot. He should be fighting Dubois, in my opinion. That fight fell through with 24 hours to go. What does Usyk get out of fighting Jospeh Parker?
What is the motivation for Usyk, do you think?
What's the motivation to fight Dubois? He's already beat him.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing with that is he could become undisputed again. So what? I mean, and say that you are all of a sudden getting a bit old and you're not, those Fury fights have taken it out of you and you lose to Dubois, you've had a bit of a stinker, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I think the money's going to be interesting for those fights because I'm not sure that the money is going to be, well, it's not going to be anywhere near what he's been making. And maybe when decision time comes around, Usyk goes, do you know what, I'll leave it. Because what a move that would be. But it's very difficult to retire when you feel like you've just had your 2 best wins and you're actually still got a lot to live and you love it. But that's sometimes the right time.
Definitely, I agree. And the WBO as well, that he's made mandatory for that. And if Usyk does go down that Dubois route, does WBO strip Usyk, give it to Parker?
Is that
AJ Parker fight interest you?
Because there'll be a rotation system, and I think it's a bit early for that, to be honest with you. But AJ Parker, I mean, does that motivate us?
For the world title?
Not really. Yeah, for the world title. That's the main motivation. There's 2 fights that do motivate us a lot, and one is Daniel Dubois, and one is Tyson Fury. I've said it 100 times, but if we can't get those fights, he will fight someone. Parker, Caballero, Wilder, I don't know, White. I forgot about Dillian White. Someone mentioned it the other day. Maybe, but you've got to ask what motivates you. It's a bit like Usyk. Are you motivated to fight Jospeh Parker? Are you? I don't know. But we're going to fight again, so we've got to fight someone. But we'd rather it was one of those 2.
Definitely. And you've seen that Joe was passing me a note earlier. Yeah. Because I'll let you in. I'll let you know the secret. The IBF are going to order Derek Chisora as mandatory for Daniel Dubois' IBF title next month.
Really?
Your thought on Del Boy getting that world title shot against Daniel Dubois?
He's fought for the world title before, hasn't he? How many times? Twice?
Twice, yeah.
It's not a good fight for him, Daniel Dubois. It's not a fight I want to see. But listen, it's Del Boy's career, isn't it? If he's earned it and he's been called, it's not his fault. So the 50th fight, I don't know, but it's just the style. Like, there's certain styles that at this stage in Del Boy's career are good for him and some that are bad for him. And Dubois is one that's very bad for him. But listen, Del Boy's a legend, so it's up to him.
A couple of quick ones before the weigh-in starts. I was watching Coogan's interview with you the other day. They forgot to mention Jake Paul calling out Anthony Joshua and get your response to that. I mean, you've been in Jake Paul's company. Is he just that crazy, Jake Paul?
Oh, he might be, yeah. I mean, I think... I'm going to sneeze, hang on. Excuse me. I think with Jake Paul wants to create those wild moments, those huge spectacles that make people gasp. He also wants to make as much money as possible, and the AJ fight does both of those things. So it's very dangerous. It's probably like a Southern area cruiserweight champion fighting Anthony Joshua. That's like crazy. The levels, So, but we haven't, when we were world heavyweight champion, when he was world heavyweight champion, and we were going for undisputed and unified and all this kind of stuff, it wouldn't have even been a consideration. That's why the first time around, AJ had no interest in Ngannou because he just said, no, I just want to try and become undisputed. Now, we ain't even got an opponent. So would we fight Jake Paul for a load of money? Of course. Like, why? Be a sweet payday. But
16-ounce gloves though.
Yeah, but nah, fuck that. We don't do that. We don't do that. If we're in a fight, we follow the Queensberry rules. Right? 10-ounce gloves, 3-minute rounds. It's not. We don't mess around with all that kind of stuff. That's not boxing. So I didn't like the 2026 part. It's like me saying I'm going for the LA Olympics in 2028 in surfing. Do you know what I mean?
I've seen your surfing
That's
eyes.
what I'm
Don't
saying.
do it.
Yeah. So,
don't do it.
But what I'm saying is, if he wants to do it, probably now is the only time we can do it, because sooner or later we're going to be in a proper fight, and we'd definitely do it.
Eddie, you're not jet lagged, you said, but I want you to break down this card for us and why people should tune in to the zone on Friday
because
night.
every next gen card is a brilliant card. I mean, Cameron Vong against Jordan Flynn is a brilliant 10-round contest. So is Farnell against Dickinson.
Yep.
That will be an absolute war. And then you've got William Croller also stepping up. He's a very, very good young prospect. He's actually got a real fight tomorrow night. Taylor Bevan as well on the card as well. So much more. So many quality fighters.
Big heavy hitter.
Connor Tusbury, who looked devastating last time out. And then you will witness just one of the great atmospheres and great beginnings of a journey in the Pat Brown fight. You're going to love watching this kid. I think this is the next superstar of British boxing, and the roof will come off Altrincham Ice Rink tomorrow. It might be chilly. Double up on the socks and tune in live on DAZN to watch it.
Eddie Hearn, thank you so much, mate. Thank you.